And now we have reached the portion of Liberty Nation Radio which we entitle Talkin' Liberty, as we examine threats and promising developments regarding your individual liberty with LibertyNation.com legal affairs editor, constitutional lawyer, our regular contributor, Scott Cosenza. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing well. Now, let's take a little trip down memory lane back to the days of George H.W. Bush, who was elected president 30 years ago, and talk about his Attorney General William Barr. Oh, wait a second. He's also going to be Trump's Attorney General.
That's right.
A 30-year time warp, and William Barr now stands to succeed Jeff Sessions as Donald Trump's Attorney General. And what do you see as the upside, downside, assets, and liabilities of William Barr?
Well, I think for the Trump administration, just in the political angle, he's an easy confirm. He's not at all controversial in his manner of being or his service previously, and so he's easy in. As far as for the Trump administration, I think that I don't see what the benefit is from a legal perspective, Tim, because President Trump has fashioned himself as an anti-establishment president, and it seems like William Barr is born and bred establishment. So I don't understand particularly what the appeal is there as a pick for AG, except for the ease with which he can expect to get the job.
Well, isn't it not dissimilar to Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch in the sense that both of them are pretty much establishment figures? It seems to me the strategy for Trump with any judicially related nominee, whether it be to Attorney General or to the court, is to come up with someone that the traditional Republican conservative establishment, I might term it, would approve of, so that he would get easy confirmation.
Well, that's interesting the way you say it, Tim. I think that has been true, but he hasn't picked the person who they would approve of or choose above all other choices, and that those people who may be like libertarianish would not choose from. It seems to me that he's tried to use, if we can use the double circles of the Venn diagram, to pick somebody who is kind of in both of those circles. So maybe towards the edge of the conservative acceptability circle, but not dead center, which seems to be the Barr pick.
So, Scott, what, if anything, stood out in the confirmation hearings for William Barr as you see it?
Tim, I thought the treatment of the drug war issues, namely marijuana legalization, was most interesting. It's an issue that we've talked about before. Right now, the current situation is marijuana is absolutely illegal in all instances at the federal level and legal in many instances at the state level. And what that means is that people who operate under a legal state law rubric, whether that's people who buy marijuana or prescribed it or do the prescribing or sell it, are all violating federal law, even though they may be operating legally under state law. That's completely untenable. You may recall that Eric Holder put a memo out that basically said as long as people were obeying state law, then the feds wouldn't intervene and prosecute them criminally. Jeff Sessions pulled that memo. Okay, he reversed course and said that the department will reassert the right to basically prosecute these cases. Now, Barr, I was very interested in his responses to a number of senators who asked about this, said basically because businesses and individuals have relied on that memo, okay, the Cole memo is what it's called, to open up stores, to do all the things that, are involved in the vast commercial activity that surrounds marijuana in all these states, that they have a reliance interest, and therefore he's not going to prosecute them. So basically, it's going to be whether he's going to reissue the Cole memorandum was not stated with explicitly, but effectively that will be the rule going forward under his administration of the Justice Department, should he be confirmed.
Well, anything changed, do you suspect, with the Mueller investigation, with William Barr in charge as opposed to Rod Rosenstein?
Tim, I was shocked to learn that Barr calls Mueller, I think he said, a good friend. Again, we have another person who I wish there were people who would just had no opinion or no personal involvement at all with these people,
Yeah.
right? Enemy, friend, or whatever. You want kind of fair dealing. So that's what I took away from the thing is who's going to say no to their very good friend. I don't know. It's troubling.
All right, let's move on to the state of Georgia, where there's a guy named Carl Malamud who's going around posting the laws of the state of Georgia, which does not seem very happy about it.
He is our hero, Tim. The official code of Georgia is a copyrighted document. So what happens is Georgia has a peculiar arrangement where they are in league with Lexis, I believe, or Westlaw, LexisNexis, which is a company that is a legal publishing company. So what they do is this is sort of how they're a company that aids lawyers in doing their work. If you say to me, Tim, I'm being prosecuted for this certain violation of the law, I want to look up the law. I also want to look up what laws may be surrounding that law or mentioning that law. And to do that, the legislators don't make it a convenient way for people to access these laws and cross-reference them. And also with court cases, private legal publishers have done so. And LexisNexis did so with something called key cites or key citations, which help lawyers sort of basically do their work. Okay. Well, Georgia basically says that the official law of Georgia is only the version that includes those key citations. So Mr. Malamud says, well, if that's the official law, I want to reprint that so that Georgians have access to the laws that they're expected to obey. Not a very radical proposition, but it is radical for Georgia because then they can't enforce the copyright and get LexisNexis their money. And so they're sort of the enforcement arm of LexisNexis's accounts receivable in this instance. And they were ordered by the federal courts, as a matter of fact, to leave Mr. Malamud alone. And they're now trying to prevent him from actually buying a copy of the laws so that he can then reprint them so that everyone, including everyone who lives in Georgia, can see what laws they're expected to live their lives under.
This is a mind-bending story. I mean, it's just hard to believe that the public law, the law which affects the citizens of a state, cannot be accessed by those citizens because of copyright laws. I don't even see how that comes about.
It's like a Monty Python skit gone wrong.
It really is. Now, a familiar refrain among suburban dwellers is the crabby neighbor who yells, "Get off my lawn." That's not going to happen in the case of one woman who is suing for the right to not grow any grass in her subdivision in Missouri.
The city wants to find this woman who, by the way, has a garden on her property. She is allergic to grass. She has an allergy, and it aggravates her. The city wants to fine her $180,000 and give her 20 years in prison. Excuse me, those are
Wow.
the maximums that
Yeah.
they,
Okay.
according
I
to
was
the
going to say
letter
there
that
more
they
than
sent her, right? But that's what that. I mean, you can imagine though how troubling it is to get a threatening letter like that. All you're doing is trying to both have a beautiful home area and also not suffer from your allergy. And she just wants a variance that the city is able to get. And I just think it's interesting that somebody with a medical condition, and it's not like they want to have graffiti and junk in their yard. She has a flower bed that spans her entire yard. It's probably keeps up more with her yard than the average neighbor does. But that's not consistent with the city's zoning requirements, and these petty dictators really have a lot of control over people's lives. So I hope that the Eighth Circuit panel, who's reviewing the case, finds that freedom includes not just to be free from searches and seizures, but some property rights as well.
another jaw dropper right there. And now we move to Oregon, which, unsurprisingly, Scott, is considering the toughest gun restrictions in the country.
Well, I'm sure the New Jersey legislature, after reading this news, will be rushing back to their desks,
Yeah.
Tim, to to get more
I'm sure you're right.
restrictive. I thought this was a troubling Representative Sampleton of what we see around the country now, which is legislators submitting gun proposals, which, while they don't have a high likelihood of passage, would make so many of their neighbors felons or ban guns almost completely. It's staggering to me. Senator Robert Wagner, a state senator from Oregon, introduced SB 501, which includes requiring a background check anytime a person buys ammunition, and only 20 rounds ammunition to be purchased available every 30 days. So basically, it effectively eliminates target shooting, hobbyist gun shooting, just completely eliminates it. And the legislation itself was written by Students for Change, a Parkland high school in the wake of the Parkland massacres. And the senator said that the legislation was a stretch, but he just couldn't say no to the kids. And it said that this is your movement, and we want to support you as representatives. I just thought it was fantastic that they've literally ceded the law drafting to children. And what will those children say when they start hauling off, their cousins and brothers and sisters and mothers, to spend significant terms in prison for having common everyday items that used to be protected?
But are no longer, certainly not in the climate we're in now. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Tim.
This program, Liberty Nation Radio Plus LibertyNation.com's own podcast, The Uprising, are available to you on demand anytime, any place, anywhere at LibertyNation.com and from fine podcast providers everywhere. So that is it for this week, but we'll be back at you next week. Same time, same station. Until then, this is Tim Donner saying stand up for liberty. And we'll see you next time on Liberty Nation Radio.